Hiya, what's crack? It's Erin. Last week it was 9 months since my brain surgery. And so, with 9 months having passed, it was time for my MRI again. I've been getting them every 12 weeks since I had brain surgery. And so, this was my 9 month MRI, and it was the first one that I've had here in Ireland. All of the rest of them were over in Canada, so I was a wee bit nervous, especially because of the seizure, like the start of a seizure that I had recently had. I was nervous about like scar tissue or if the tumour was like growing back or anything. So apart from my MRI, there are a few health updates that I'm not sure if I've mentioned really, so I just kind of want to brush over them first. The first one being my health records, and I just wanted to let you know that they got into them grand here. It was a wee bit of a difficult situation at the start, but they have all of it now, all my notes, all my MRIs, everything, so that's very, very good. And then secondly is my brain tumour. So if you remember, I had said it isn't considered my property in Canada, and so there was a wee bit of going back and forth. And it was taken out 9 months ago. The last update I had, I was still living in Canada, so that was like probably like at least 3 or 4 months ago. So I hadn't heard anything since as to where it is and if here at home they got like the right to have it basically. And so I found out then last week at my neurosurgeon appointment that they did get it back. So my tumour is now all in Ireland. So then I had my MRI appointment and I was really nervous given that it's the first one I've had over here. I get it every 12 weeks. It's just a nervous time. Everybody calls it scanxiety, which is so true. And because I'd had that start of a seizure just a few weeks ago, I was very nervous as to what the MRI was going to show. So I went in and it was the exact same machine, even as what they had over in Canada, the exact same process. Everybody was lovely, so it was grand. It was in the cancer centre here as well, which is not the nicest feeling going in, always just makes you a little uncomfortable, but everybody was lovely. And my man and dad actually went over with me and Devon was working. So this is the first MRI I've ever had that Devon wasn't with me. And how many have I had now? October, November, February, May, July. So I've had 5. So then a few days later, I had to travel down a couple hours away to a bigger hospital that I was meeting with a neurosurgeon to discuss my MRI results. The surgeon was lovely, but I feel like, getting a phone call on your MRI results or driving, 10 minutes to get them isn't as bad as when you're driving for a couple hours and you're just thinking about it. So that was a wee bit more stressful. And to be honest, like I said before, I was nervous. This is probably the most nervous I've been for one. And so I went in and he showed me, my original MRI and he showed me my most recent one. And it was funny to see more scar tissue in there. Like in my last MRI, I could see the scar tissue, but I didn't expect to see so much more in this one. But he said everything looks perfectly fine, like everything's grand. He's not worried at all. It looks really good. So that was a really good thing to come out of the appointment. Whenever I was asking him questions, and now my dad, my sister was with me for this appointment, and that's the first one that they've really, really been to where, I'm talking directly to someone and asking for their opinion. And I've seen many, many doctors throughout this process, and, it is different person to person on opinion. And so they were there for me to ask the serious questions. And even though I've heard this from so many people, the hard stuff, it doesn't get any easier when you hear it from someone else. It's almost as if I'm waiting for someone to see it differently, as if they're going to have a different opinion on the overall outcome. And that's just not happened. And so there was no new information, but it's just hard to hear it, if that makes sense. So I definitely was like sad after the appointment, wasn't feeling the best. For me to ask him, what is your genuine opinion of this never coming back, of me never having another one? And, him being like, he did not want to answer. And so he kind of didn't and was like, no, we need to focus on like the treatment that you're going to need down the line, And so no one feeling hopeful and me being left with the feeling of, okay, well, it's weird to know what you're going to die from, really. And if you know me on this channel, you know I'm always trying to stay positive. I'm always looking at the positive side of things. And I am really back there today. It's been a rough couple of days, but I really am back there. And so if you're going through like a hard time, give yourself those days to just feel it. That's absolutely fine. And then give yourself a shake. That's where I'm at, but I'm just explaining to you where I've been since that appointment. It's not the nicest thing to hear. I knew that all the doctors I had in Canada were lovely, and all the doctors I've had so far here are lovely, but it almost felt as if, because I knew I was going to have a whole different team here, I was hoping that something would be different. I was hoping that they would find something else or disagree with something, and unfortunately that's just not the case. It doesn't get any easier getting told that, really. And so I have my first oncologist appointment here in a few days. So it's this week coming. And it is again in that bigger hospital a couple hours away. So my dad's going to take me down again for that. And Devin is working again for that. So he's not been at any of the appointments, which is grand. Honestly, it's just like, it's not the nicest time. And I have other people there too. So I don't want him to be under pressure either. And so I am not looking forward to that at all, really. But again, I will go in there and I will ask their opinion and I will ask a lot of questions, which is something I never ever did at the start of this process. I have never really had health problems and I never wanted to like kick up a fuss. Whereas now I definitely go in and I ask them like the big questions. I'm not just there to kind of brush over the right now. Like I want to know the statistics of past clients that you've had. I want to know like what you think is going to happen basically. You know, it was very similar to previous appointments I had when I was talking to the neurosurgeon, where he had said you need to keep the chemo and radiation in your back pocket, is what he said, for when you need it later, because if we do it now, you will have, you know, a wee bit of brain damage and you're very young to have that. And he said, you know, if we do it now, it'll stop it coming back so soon, but it won't stop your overall life expectancy, if that makes sense. So definitely not the nicest news. But it doesn't get easier, really. So before I came back, the pathologist here had said that they wanted the tumour here and they were then going to send the tumour to London so that whenever any extra tests become available or anything, that my tumour will be over there. But in that previous appointment there with the neurosurgeon, I asked the nurse that was with him and she went and found out for me, and she came back and said that the pathologist had kind of changed his approach and didn't really think it was necessary to get that second opinion, and didn't mention like having it over there. So I'm definitely going to ask them about that when I'm back at that hospital this week, because I would like that second opinion, even if it's to get the same crappy news over again. I really don't mind. At least I know. I would like it to be over in London like he had said originally, so that whenever something does change, hopefully something does change, that it'll be over there so that they can run tests on it. There was actually a clinical trial that I wanted to enter before I came home. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, but it is specific for gliomas. And it's like the idea that whenever they take out your tumour, even if it's perfectly taken out like mine was, none of it is left, everything looks perfect in there, it doesn't stop it from coming back, because glial cells escape into your bloodstream, and it all depends on the person as to when those cells like start growing or whatever. So while I was still over in Canada, over in England, they were doing this clinical trial where anyone that had any type of glioma tumour could send over their blood, and they would take that blood sample and they'd be able to test it for glial cells. And apparently like it was very successful, and it was able to tell people like, yes, it is in your system, even though you've just had surgery and it all looks great, so it will come back. And it was able to give other people a wee bit of hope. And so I really wanted to enter that, and then unfortunately I had to wait until everything was good for me to come home, and I missed my chance for that clinical trial, and hoping that it opens up again in a few years. but it would have been nice to have that too. Just even if it is a bad answer, at least you know, right? So it's not been the nicest wee bit of time, but if you know me, you know I'm trying my best. So I have that appointment on Thursday, and I, again, just always hoping for a different opinion, honestly. And I knew it wasn't easy for my dad and my sister to be there during that appointment either, because like I said, it is the first appointment they've really been at for that kind of stuff. And it's different just me telling them, because I think they were kind of hoping I was being dramatic or something. And so for them to be there to see like a neurosurgeon be like, you know, it's really not good, then it is just a different feeling, I think. Not that they never ever trusted me, not like that at all. I think it's just a different thing when you're in a hospital or you're in a cancer centre and you're just seeing it in front of you. I think it just makes things a wee bit more realistic. So it's not been the easiest time for my family either, just kind of processing everything really. That is not the nicest update, and even nothing has changed. You know, it's the exact same situation I was in 2 weeks ago, but times like this just be a wee bit difficult. The neurosurgeon did also mention that he thought I should reduce my MRIs to every 6 months, and that makes me very nervous. And he said that is like the standard here. If it's not, you know, a high grade glioma, you should be dropping to every 6 months. But whenever you're 100% sure it's coming back and it's going to come back more aggressive, I don't see why we're dropping it to every 6 months and not every 3. And so I am not too comfortable with that. So I'm going to continue to talk to them about that really. Even though having an MRI is a stressful time, I think I'd be more stressed if I didn't have those check-ins every 12 weeks. So I am also getting on grand with the anti-seizures that I've been put on. It is like a 5-month process to get swapped over. So I'm on both anti-seizures until mid-October before I get to start downing the Keppra. So it is a very long process of switching over medication, which has been fun, you know, the best time. But me and the Lamical, I think it's called, are getting on grand. It's just very, very different being on 2 medications that slow your brain down. And it's grand, but it just takes a wee minute to catch back up with yourself, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that my oncologist appointment goes well this week, and I would love to come on and say that there had been some sort of really good news and a big change, and someone had a different opinion and everything's cured, but obviously it's not going to happen. But I hope that it happens someday, where I can come on and give you that update that everything's fine. But I'm laughing at my voice doing all the changes where I'm trying not to cry, not to be sad, not to be down, but it's important to just kind of be open to, so that anybody else that's having a hard time knows that it's fine to feel like crap sometimes, and to just give yourself that time to process, and then give yourself a wee shake after, and you'll be grand. So if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. Please go give your family and friends a hug. Please remember that life is short, and it's important to be grateful for what you have today, I promise. So please go do that for me, and I will see you very soon, I'm sure. Bye-bye.